How are you? Good. Good to see you. Yes.
Yes. Now I recognize your voice.
Yes.
You always do everything over food, so. No. Just funny. Yeah.
Yes. How are you?
Service here. I will call this meeting of the Stratford Board of Education to order at 7:17 on Monday, April 24th. My name is Andrea Corcoran. I'm board chair. We do have a quorum tonight. We are missing Mr. Kennedy, unfortunately, but the rest of us are here. And with that, I will hand it off to Ms. Wiltsey for the invocation and pledge.
Thank you. Please stand, everyone. beseech you, Almighty God, to bless this meeting of the Board of Education. So guide and rule over our hearts and minds that all our deliberations and decisions may be in accordance with your will and lead to the advancement and welfare of the community of Stratford for whom we serve. Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. You may be seated.
Okay, we'll begin our evening with our student representative reports. From Bunnell High School, Ms. Etienne.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Tara Etienne, and it is a pleasure to be addressing you this evening. Dominic Puzo has been named the valedictorian of the class of 2023, and Sophia Calzone has been named the salutatorian of class of 2023. Both are exceptional students, both in and outside of the classroom, and this is an honor well deserved. The language department and 30 students from Bunnell recently went abroad to both Paris and Barcelona over spring break. It was a wonderful opportunity for the students to experience new cultures and visit historic sites in both countries. Our very own podcast, Bunnell Underground, was interviewed by News 12 on April 18th. They wanted to highlight the podcast's success at bringing together the school and town community by empowering student voices. The guests this year on the podcast have included the mayor of Stratford, Laura Hoydig, Vietnam War veteran Bill O'Brien, local pastor Mary McBride Lee, and former UConn basketball star Chris Smith, along with a diverse cross-section of staff and students. As all 4 of our current hosts continue their education in college this fall, we are excited to bring 4 new perspectives to the podcast. Men of Color and Living in Color had a joint meeting last month to discuss ways to support each other and collaborate on events. With that in mind, over 15 MOC and LNC students attended the Defining Us screening and conversation on April 21st. Our student leaders participated in breakout groups and added much needed student perspective to the overall conversation. MOC students will be helping lead the inaugural Alpha Esquires Leadership Summit at the Baldwin Center on May 20th. We are expecting 150 6th through 12th grade male students from across New England to attend this event. A number of LNC student leaders attended a college tour over spring break with Village Initiative Project. They visited over 6 colleges in Virginia and had an amazing experience networking with like-minded students. This Friday, April 28th, the school counseling department at Bunnell High School is taking 66 grade 10th and 11th students to Post University to tour the school. School counselors met with grade 11 students to conduct post-secondary planning workshops. AP testing will begin the first week of May. Counselors are preparing the behind-the-scenes work needed for students to test and to proctor these exams. 70% of our grade 12 students have completed their FAFSA application, completing our FAFSA challenge goal. The BHS SHS Indoor Percussion 2023 Musical Arts Conference Gold Medal Indoor Drumline champions. Bunnell scored a 91.7. Only 2 schools out of the entire show had a higher score. The students are preparing for the spring concert and the Memorial Day Parade, and we are currently accepting registrations for the fall 2024 season. Our color guard starts spring training on May 17th, and the drumline begins May 3rd. All current 7th through 12th students are invited to attend at no expense. Bunnell Stage is so excited to announce the upcoming performances of Mean Girls High School Edition. These students have been working so hard to put on an amazing performance for you. Please come out and see these fantastic performances May 18th, 19th at 7 p.m. and May 20th at 2 p.m. Tickets are on sale now online, 15 for adults and 10 for students. Tickets will be sold at the door. See you there. The choir is working hard to prepare for the spring concert on May 23rd at 7 p.m. Please come support all of the students in the music department that are performing. On March 31st, Bunnell hosted the second annual Spring Fling in the Bunnell Gym. From freshmen to seniors, over 300 students participated and reflected the positivity and energy of the Bulldog community. Upcoming will be the arrangements for the 2023-2024 class, council, and student government elections. Like last year, we will work in conjunction with the members of the Town of Stratford Registrar's Office to help run the elections. Interact Club enjoyed their time at Second Hill Lane last Friday, hosting our annual spring egg hunt with the kindergarten students and K2 ABA program. Students also volunteered at the Baldwin Center on Saturday, helping Rotary with a paper shredding event on April 22nd. Lastly, students will be heading to the YMCA to volunteer at the annual Healthy Kids Day on April 29th. Bulldogs in Training headed over to Second Hill Lane on April 21st to take part in some team building activities. We have been working hard planning our end of the year barbecue at BHS in May. For the second year in a row, Women's Empowerment Club will be taking part in the Center for Family Justice annual Walk a Mile in Her Shoes event on April 29th in Fairfield. Funds raised for this event will go towards the Elizabeth M. Preference Camp Hope America, an evidence-based summer camp and year-long engagement and mentoring program from young people ages 7 to 17 who have experienced trauma. The Bunnell baseball program held a free community skills clinic for youth players on Saturday, April 15th on the high school turf field. The athletic department will be recognizing Megan Camperlengo softball and Carter Rodriguez boys tennis as the May Athletes of the Month. Senior students will be recognized at the annual Senior Athlete Recognition Banquet on May 11th. Eligible athletes will be presented with 4-year varsity awards and 3.2 scholar athlete awards. The BHS Athletic Department will present service awards to Peter Bonoso and Bill Curley, as well as induct Mady Mendezelbo into the BHS Athletics Hall of Fame. Last week at Bunnell, we successfully administered the NGSS summative testing to juniors in the science wing to prepare for next week's microsome lab, where our environmental bio students will observe and understand the relationship between live organisms and their ecosystem. The Great Meadow Marsh staff spent today in these classes talking about how they are restoring plant and animal species in their community. Students are given the opportunity to learn hands-on at the marsh as well through volunteering opportunities. Students in the pre-nursing program are continuing to progress toward their state exam for certification as nurse aides. The students started their clinical rotations at Bishop Wiki Health and Rehabilitation Center last week. During these days, students work with their peers in their facilities, nurse aid staff to provide care to a variety of patients. Students have reported good experiences overall and have been able to take their classroom and skill lab learning and apply it in the real world. Thank you for your time and have a nice rest of your evening.
Thank you very much, Ms. Etienne, and I saw her roll in from Stratford High School, Ms. Golding.
Good evening. I hope that everyone had a restful and enjoyable spring break. On March 28th, the SHS junior class took the school day SAT. Early indications demonstrate that juniors increased proficiency on the exam. There are 20 students who will be assessing on the makeup SAT day to finalize our results. We would like to thank Dr. Osunde, Dr. Geda, and the Board of Education for their support of our SAT prep classes that ran these last few months. Congratulations to Liz Borjali, Humanities Department Head, and Jillian Carnes, Math Department Head, for leading their staff with structured practice in the weeks leading up to the test. The SHS and BHS joint hosted the Bar Foundation for the spring convening April 3rd through 5th. Stratford was chosen as first district in the Portrait of a Graduate cohort to be visited by both Portrait of a Graduate and the wider learning systems ecosystems groups. Their focus was on the high-quality instruction and exploration into the primary person model, traditionally known as advisory, that our schools host. We had 60 students, teachers, and administrators at both the schools and district level. I will now read some of the comments collected from the feedback forms from those who visited SHS. Collaboration is very evident and natural. Beautiful school. I was grateful to visit SHS and to hear how they're using Portrait of a Graduate along with classroom visits. Everyone was so wonderful and welcoming, and it was great to collaborate over the course of the convening. They should be proud of the work they have done to build the collaboration and respect I saw between students and teachers in the classes I saw. Keep up the good work. Your school is beautiful. I can tell how much your teachers care about their students. Always a lot going on, but a very smooth operation for sure. You have a beautiful school system, and I admire your dedication to student success. I was so impressed with the collaborative spirit I saw demonstrated in all of the classrooms I visited. The students worked with each other, asking each other deep questions, demonstrating their thinking and understanding. I also loved the POG posters in various languages, creating a culturally responsive environment. BHS also received wonderful feedback, and it is evident that the hard work occurring in both high schools is paying off. Well done, Stratford. On Wednesday, April 19th, our juniors took the NGSS, Next Generation Science Standards Test. Results are not yet available, but they will be reported during the following meeting. We are hoping to build on the success of the SAT. April 20th, SHS held their induction ceremony for the National Honor Society, Science National Honor Society, and the National Art Honor Society. 86 students were inducted into 1, 2, or all 3 of the societies. A special thank you to Dr. Gaeta, Amy Boyle, Andrea Corcoran, Lisa Carol Fabian, and Janice Kupi for attending. Also, I would like to thank all of the advisors and officers for their commitment to the students at Stratford High School. Senior Yasmin Sekunle has done something truly amazing. Yasmin was accepted into UPenn, Brown, Yale, Princeton, and Dartmouth. Yes, that is 5 Ivy acceptances for Yasmin. Please help me congratulate her. SHS senior Alex Wynn learned that he was awarded the CMIC Allenberg Memorial Scholarship totaling $128,000 for 4 years of college education. In addition, Alex was also awarded a full presidential scholarship to attend UConn. Well-deserved, and congratulations. Amelia Kubron has committed to play Division I soccer at High Point University in North Carolina. Congratulations, Amelia. Stratford High seniors have been accepted to some of the following universities: Harvard, Brown, Bentley, Villanova, Clemson, Virginia Tech, Penn State, George Mason, and Rochester Institute of Technology. Congratulations to all seniors on their hard work. During spring break, SHS and BHS language students attended the Europe trip to Barcelona and Paris. We visited popular attractions such as the Museum de Rodin, the Eiffel Tower, La Sagrada de Familia, the Picasso Museum, and many more. As a student who attended this trip, it was a great opportunity to explore the cultures of these European countries. My favorite parts of the trip included eating croissants in Paris and exploring the architecture and development of the Sagrada Familia Church. Thank you to all of the chaperones who made this trip a possibility. We appreciate this opportunity greatly. Additionally, our music department traveled to Orlando, Florida during spring break. They attended Orlando Fest, where they earned superior rating for concert choir, superior rating for jazz band A, concert band, wind ensemble, and an excellent rating for orchestra. Outstanding soloist for all competing bands was earned by Madalena Pech, and outstanding soloist for all competing orchestras was earned by Isaiah Johnson. Congratulations to all of the wonderful artists. Thank you, and have a wonderful evening.
Thank you. By the way, Tiana, I came here to see you and your cast in Once Upon a Mattress, and you were spectacular. Your cast was amazing, and I can't wait to see Mean Girls at Benel in a few weeks. So congratulations to you, and I'm looking forward to seeing Benel's production.
Thank you.
Okay, we do not have any presentations today, so we will move directly into our public forum session. We have a few speakers tonight. I will thank you all in advance for coming out to speak. When you come up to the podium, please state your name and your address. You'll be given 3 minutes to speak. My secretary, Mrs. Wiltsey, will help you keep that time. I do ask when you speak to please refrain from any identifying statements about students or staff, and just to maintain decorum. And I look forward to hearing you all speak, so thank you so much. Our first speakers tonight are Ms. Hargrove and Ms. Scuderi. They will be speaking together and thus will have 6 minutes.
My name is Colleen Hargrove, 1317 South Ave, Stratford, Connecticut. I've been a resident of Stratford for 3 years now, living with my wife, 3 children, and my granddaughter, who is a 7-year-old first grader at Johnson House Academy. She is sassy, outgoing, and very honest, so it was no surprise to us when she would come home from school mid-October giving us details about a little boy in her class who wasn't very nice. She'd explain to us childlike behavior he would display during class or on the playground. Things like pushing, punching children, including herself in the arm, and kicking them in the shin. She would tell us about incidents where the entire classroom would have to be evacuated due to his erratic behavior towards them and even the teacher. As seasoned parents raising 4 children between the 2 of us, which are all well in their 20s, we chalked this up to kids being kids and felt as though these were minor incidents that were being dealt with by the staff in a timely, accordingly manner. That changed when in January 2023, she ended up getting kicked in her what we called good arm at the time due to her other arm being in a cast. We did not receive a phone call about it from the administration, but rather heard it from her when she came home that night. My wife and I decided it was finally time to call the school ourselves and ask what exactly they are doing to not only ensure the safety of our granddaughter, but the class as a whole, including the teacher, and make sure that their education is not further compromised. I was told a safety plan was being put in place and I would no longer have to worry about outbursts or physical abuse like this moving forward. Not too long after this conversation, sometime in February, granddaughter came home after school to tell us that she was hit in the face by a wooden bathroom pass as a result of this same little boy swinging the lanyard it was on around his head. Although she was not the only person in the room affected by this, I was furious. Not only am I hearing about this again from my child and not administration, I was told a few short weeks ago this was under control, and it became very clear to me in this moment it was not. In the time between this incident and the next, I began to rigorously show up to school looking for answers. Why is this continuing to happen? If the safety plan isn't working, what are the next steps? Instead of answers, I was told the administration was too busy to speak with me, but not to worry because everything was being handled. After countless attempts to work with the administration at Johnson House, I decided it was time to go over their heads. I sent out dozens of emails on March 24th. I met with the Director of School Leadership and Accountability here in Stratford, who seemed to have the same goal in mind, make my child's classroom a safe and fun place to learn again. After talking with her, it was brought to my attention that the school's admins had dropped the ball on this so-called safety plan that should have been put in place back in January. But I should give her 2 weeks and she'd have a permanent solution to this ongoing problem. 3 days after our conversation, this child targeted my granddaughter by throwing an orange traffic cone at her at recess. Again, no call from an administration. Between then and now, the abuse has not only continued, but it has escalated. My child has been kicked in the leg, hit in the back of the head, and as of recently, sucker punched in the face, which is now all being downplayed by every adult involved, including those in the administration office and Board of Ed, who told me that every child, including my child, should have access to a safe and inclusive learning environment. If you ask me, nothing that has transpired in the last 7 months is considered safe here. Not only is our child's education being compromised, but so is the education of her peers, and how much is the abuser actually learning if he cannot sit through an entire class without an outburst? In this past 7 months, this has gone on from kids being kids to physical assault. In 7 months, I've heard more stories about how my child's classroom has had to be evacuated than I heard about what she's learned that day. In 7 months, my independent and outspoken first grader now wakes up in the middle of the night in a panic. She asks to sleep in our bed more times than she's had in the last 3 years. And when asked about her day, she puts her head down and goes mute. Not only is this showing my wife and I that our child's past traumas are resurfacing, but also a sign that the abuse she is experiencing is affecting her everyday life and mental health. And their solution, move my granddaughter away from her friends and closer to the teacher, so now at the age of 7, my child is being taught that it's okay for a little boy to hit girls. We're teaching her and every other child in that classroom that there are no consequences for their actions. And the administration is showing these kids that no matter who you tell or how much you tell, the victims are to blame. If 7 months ago there was any effort to make the situation better, I do not believe I'd be standing here in front of you all tonight. Instead, my wife and I have been and were given false hope that the situation would be taken and under control. Now our child, who once loved school and was excited to learn, dreads going. And all because every adult involved, apart from our child's teacher and school nurse, has failed her. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker tonight is Ms. Worley. Susan Worley. If Ms. Worley shows up before we're done, she can take the last spot. Next up will be Ms. Santone.
Do I just start?
State your name and your address, please.
My name is Tara Santone, 24 McLean Street, Stratford, 06615. My son is also in first grade, the same class that they are talking about. His name is Dewan Jr. Bartel. He is kind, he is smart, he is respectful, he gives no trouble. All of his teachers wish they had 100 Dewans. He's a great child. He loves school. I let it go for the last 7 months. Every day he comes home, he talks about the evacuations. They have to leave one classroom to go to another classroom because of the same 2 kids kicking, throwing chairs, throwing desks, throwing scissors. We got the scissors taken away, not enough. Every day it's still, oh, we had to go to another class, we had to go to another class. I ignored it, I let it be, and now I got sick of it. I complained a few times because I was getting nervous. I did not get anything back. I spoke to the superintendent, so now here I am. I got a phone call today. I'm a little emotional. I was crying this morning because now I get a phone call that while I was at work, the school nurse calls, my son got punched on the side of the head because this child had a tantrum. He saw another child, caused him to bug out, and the aide was walking him out the class, and as he was walking out, he was just throwing punches. My son got punched. He's in first grade. Unacceptable. Since September, it's been the same 2 kids causing these troubles. Why is this child not getting kicked out? Why is he not suspended? Why is this class getting inconvenienced? The whole class has to leave. Get that kid out of the class. Everybody's getting a disservice. It's not fair. So now what happens? Let's back up a few steps before he got punched in the face today. I'm sure plenty of you know it was kind of kept a secret. His teacher got bit. She needed 2 tetanus shots. Why is the child still in the class? Why didn't his parent get demanded that she picks up her child? I was so uncomfortable today that I picked up my son and I wanted him with me at my job. That mother should have picked up her kid. I understand that people struggle and this and that. I'm a mother, I work, I struggle too. I don't care, she needs to be held accountable. My son will not return to school until I am guaranteed his safety. I see real changes and things getting handled accordingly. What happens when these first graders are in 6th grade? Will he bring a knife or a gun next time? I work with children that are 3 to 5 years old, special needs, learning disabled, and behavioral issues. And best believe we hold them accountable with consistency, and they improve. My brother is learning disabled. I have my master's degree. I've been around these streets and these schools, and I'm just disgusted. His class already has one thing going on, and now they're about to have another thing. Today I spoke to the principal. I was unsatisfied. I felt like he just yesed me to get me off the phone. I feel like he's protecting the student that's causing trouble instead of my son that genuinely wants to learn. My son enjoys school. This kid just took his anger out on my son, and I will not tolerate it. I wouldn't be here today. I'm very laid back. I don't like...
Santone,
I'm done. Thank you.
thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker tonight is Mr. Cologne.
Hello, my name is Joel Cologne. I live at 11 behind here, 1111 Essex Place in Stratford. The reason I'm here today, this is my first time that I come to a meeting like this. My stepson goes to Johnson. We just moved to Stratford about a year and a half ago, and for the last 3 months, we've been having some issues at the school with him. He hasn't been behaving good, but the problem that's going on here, that they're taking him out of the classroom, they're locking him in a room in the office near the principal that doesn't have nothing. They make him sit on the floor like he's a criminal. There was an instance there that I went about 3 weeks ago with his mother, and we had a meeting there. They had to call 211 and get social workers to come into the school. So I had to leave work, she had to leave work. Incident that happened was in the classroom, and I guess while he was in the office, he made a gesture to a faculty member at the office. I guess she was very, very angry about it. She saw that we went into the office with the principal, the vice principal, me, her, and the 2 social workers for 211. After being there for about an hour and a half, coming up with a safety plan, we came outside the classroom. The meeting sat in the front so that he could go back to class because the class was coming from lunchroom. And the faculty member approached mom and said, I need your son to apologize for what he did. One thing is, he's only 6 years old. He has like a circle around him that he doesn't like people to come into his circle or yell at him or touch him. She actually asked mom and looked at me. I said, yeah, he did something wrong. Apologized. But he had his face down. She came and approached, took her hand to his chin and said, look at me when I'm talking to you. I got very angry and I looked at mom, but I had to keep my composure. As soon as we left from there, I said, you saw what just happened there? How about if it was happening in the classroom when he's misbehaving or something, the teacher's talking to him with a bad tone and touching him or something, and it's agitating his behavior. And I also heard there's some budget cuts that are being planned to bring specialists to come in and help kids and stuff like that in a situation like my stepson. As of right now, I feel like the principal and some faculty there are not adequate to handle situation with kids, especially locking them up in a room that's almost, for me, it's considered like a jail cell. Because when I went there 3 weeks ago to talk to him, the 2 teachers were there and a social worker, and I don't know how they spoke to him, but he didn't even want to come out of the room. He was just crying. It took me about 15 minutes to talk to him,
Thank you, Mr.
come out,
Malone.
and then we started a safety plan.
It's 3 minutes, thank you.
Thank you very much. Ms. Worley, this is your last chance. Ms. Worley? Okay, I encourage Ms. Worley, if you watch us later, to please email the Board of Education with your comments, please. Thank you very much to everybody who came out to speak tonight. I appreciate your time and I appreciate the courage that it takes to get up in front of the board and the assembled folks here and tell us what's on your mind, so thank you. We will move on to our administrative executive report. Dr. Sunday.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Good evening to everybody. I do have a few things that I do want to go through the budget report, or excuse me, the executive report, but I do want to take a moment to perhaps not directly address those speakers, but address the topic in general. We do appreciate the vulnerability of coming up here, and we recognize that student behavior has been a challenge for our district, which is what is most important to us. We also understand that when we discuss student behaviors, particularly at this developmental age, with 6 years old, it does take a different look. But nonetheless, as I've had conversations with family members, as I've met with them, as I know my team has worked with family members, the one thing that we can all agree is that no child or student deserves to be subjected to behaviors of such nature. Over the last few weeks, and debatably months, we've received a lot of feedback with this class specifically. I personally had a chance to connect with not just the classroom teacher, but other teachers in the school as well as the administration. There are things that we can do, and there are things that we will do. We understand that the nature of our emotions want us to have visible evidence right now of some of those actions. The nature of education and student privacy, unfortunately, makes that challenging to be able to effectively communicate to our families some of the action steps that we do take. Regardless of how frustrated you are, we will continue to field your calls and take your meetings. That is a commitment that I am making publicly from my office to all of you as families. The eventual aim is to make sure that every child can access their education, every child. And unfortunately, before we can make programmatic changes for an individual child's academic program, there is a set of protocols that we do have to go through, and oftentimes it does take time. So yes, we do have an incredible amount of work to do. I am personally involved in the work that goes into this case that's been shared by our families, and I am personally working with the administrators at Johnson House to make sure that we have processes in place that respond to the needs. I will pause with that, okay, and make myself available to any family member who would like to sit with me to discuss their case so I can better understand the best ways to support our team at Johnson House. Again, thank you for your vulnerability. We have work to do, and you have our commitment that we'll continue to work on that. So moving on with my executive report, I do want to share some exciting news. It is my honor and privilege to introduce to the Board of Education in the Stratford community the next principal of Eli Whitney Elementary School. Please put your hands together for Mr. Robert Viteri. Honored to, in a few moments, I'm actually going to ask Mr. Viteri if you can come up and say a few words to our community. Mr. Robert Viteri has been appointed to the position of principal of Eli Whitney Elementary School after leading the school as the interim principal since February 1st. Mr. Viteri will be entering his 6th year of educational leadership. Please put your hands together for him again. If you are familiar with Mr. Viteri, he is Mr. Stratford. We used to make that claim for Jack Del Piano, but I think the young guy is going to come in and take that title. He is truly everything that we want in all of our students. Prior to going to Eli Whitney in that leadership role, he was a classroom teacher at Second Hill Lane for 12 years. Mr. Viteri, if you've been around him, is somebody who is very invested in students and collaborative work with the community. As we did reference, he himself is a graduate of Eli Whitney, Flood, and Bunnell, so he's very familiar with the hallways. In 2022, with a big emphasis, and this is somebody who wears his emotions on his sleeve, Mr. Viteri was recognized as Connecticut PTA Outstanding Elementary School Assistant Principal of the Year. Please put your hands together for that. Mr. Viteri aims to lead by example, and he embodies the district's portrait of a graduate on a daily basis. I do want to go back to that lead by example, so much so that a few days ago, Mr. Viteri was, as Dr. Gator calls it, was dumpster diving in an effort to try to retrieve one of his students' retainer. But he's not too above it to get his hands dirty and do the work for his children. So Eli Whitney, as I said, is home for Mr. Viteri. Is eager to continue to build partnerships and relationships with all stakeholders and to establish and sustain all the excellence that exists at Eli, as well as support the whole child. He is an alum of the University of Connecticut. He and his wife live in Milford with their 3 children. In his free time, he enjoys coaching, reading, and cheering for sports teams that mostly disappoint him, right? I'm guessing you're a Jets fan, right? Please put your hands for a warm welcome for Mr. Robert Viteri, our new principal at Eli Whitney Elementary School.
Thank you very much, Dr. Sunday and the Board of Education for this opportunity. It is an honor to lead a school with such dynamic children, an extremely dedicated staff, and a supportive school community. I feel very fortunate to be part of Eli Whitney Elementary and the students and families. As Dr. Sunday mentioned, I've been committed to the town of Stratford as an educator for nearly 20 years. As a graduate of the Stratford Public Schools, and more specifically Eli Whitney, I'm not sure if I would have been targeted as a student destined for education or school leadership. Although a positive spin could be that I got a lot of career hands-on learning experiences in the offices of the principal's offices of Whitney, Flood, and Bunnell. So maybe that's a positive spin. But now I aim to be a role model for the portrait of a graduate, and I'm thrilled to work with all stakeholders. I view education as a lifelong process and continue to learn every day. From the students, teachers, and parents, I want to extend a very special thanks to Mrs. Florick for her guidance and leadership for both the building and for me personally in my role as the assistant principal. I encourage parents to be involved in every way possible. My door is always open to you, and I heartily welcome your conversation and input. And to our Whitney Wales students, I saw maybe a couple in here too. I hope that you're excited to finish the school year strong and ready to continue your next steps towards greatness. I look forward to celebrating our collective successes this year, next year, and beyond. Thank you very much.
Welcome again, Mr. Viteri, and again, congratulations. Continue to keep that place rocking. It's a special place at Eli. Again, welcome and congratulations. Next on my report, you did hear the students reference it. Over the weekend, I asked my executive assistant to push out a letter just really notifying our community of the success of our students on the SAT performance. It's quite remarkable when you have a chance to disaggregate the data. I do want to carve out time to give credit to our faculty and staff there at both high schools. I see a few representatives in the audience. They've worked incredibly hard. One of the things that we focused on from a pedagogy standpoint was really leveraging data to inform our work. And we're seeing the efforts of our teachers emerge in the performance of our students. And we continue to encourage our kids to be outstanding scholars as they continue to progress through the assessment season. So again, congratulations to both our schools. Please put your hands together for both Bunnell and Stratford High School. Next on the executive report, just a brief update. Last week was a pretty busy week across our community, across our school systems. On Monday evening, we hosted a town hall meeting that was centered in climate and culture. And many of the same challenges that we heard today, we heard across our school system. We do recognize that student behavior is a national issue. There's reports and articles that I've read over the last couple of weeks, but our sole focus is our children here at Stratford Public Schools. We met for about 2 hours and 45 minutes and had deep and vulnerable conversations at the Worcester Middle School auditorium. We had approximately somewhere between 50 and 55 family members in attendance. We had teachers who were in attendance. We had about 25 or 30 administrators who were in attendance. And I thought that composition of the people who participated in that town hall was very, very important. Because as we examine the audience, our principals, our administrators who respond to student conduct and student discipline had a chance to hear from our families, right? And we also created some space for our families to hear from our educators as well as our administrators. Some of the big takeaways of that 2 hours and 45 minutes was themes that centered on parent involvement and participation in continuing to work and partner with schools so we can continue to shape the values and expectations for our students about how we expect them to treat each other. We talked about having more cogent protocols and processes in our school system. And after 2 years, if I could make one critique about our school system is that we did not have sufficient processes that allow for us to function efficiently. So there was some good feedback that came from our families around that topic. We also had families that brought up some very relevant points, most notably honoring the differences, cultural differences that come with our collection of our children in our schools. We discussed social media as a big challenge for all of us in the school system. We discussed how do we respond to the expediency of social media. The conversation generated some good things for us to think about, and we did have some note takers. We will continue to incorporate the ideas and thoughts of family members. And I do want to extend an additional special appreciation to Lieutenant Curtis Eller and our SROs who are also present on that day. I'll close with this. It was a long evening, a very cathartic and emotional and vulnerable space. But when I looked across that auditorium, my back is still stiff from that conversation, by the way. But as I looked across that auditorium, we had administrators, we had parents who did not just come to vent and share their frustration, but also be part of the solution. We had teachers who showed up and shared their experience and shared the challenges that they see and experience every day in the classroom for our parents to hear. We had town council members there, and we had board members there. If we are to improve in any way around this specific challenge, we're going to need more people to be part of that conversation. So again, I appreciate all those who were able to join us. We have a lot of work to do. There's some practical work that's going on right now, and internally we were able to connect with some students and get some feedback. We will be releasing a discipline matrix that is system-wide. We're also able to get together with our teachers for their feedback as well. We'll be sending out communication to our families because we would like their voice to be part of this process as well. So keep an eye on your email. We'll send an invite and we'll get together to continue to do this work. On Wednesday of the same week, we met with the Board of Education, myself and my administration. We met with Town Council and the administration from the Mayor's office to present and advocate for the board's budget for fiscal year 24. In our community, the budget has always been a difficult topic, but we went into that conversation, in my opinion, fully confident, fully prepared to make a case for why we're asking for the funds that we're asking in order to operate our district next year. In all, we spent about an hour and 30 minutes with town council leaders. About 30 minutes of that was the presentation of our budget, and then approximately an hour were questions that we fielded and we provided responses to. The big takeaway is we've been through a long process with the budget process. We've asked for approximately $4.8 million. A healthy chunk of that is committed to contractual obligations for our professional staff. It's become clear that we will not receive the $4.8 million, but what we do need to do is make sure we receive enough to make sure that we can operate the schools and we do not have to resort to reduction measures that completely compromise our school system. So I put a request on the table to the town council for an additional $1 million as we respond to the current budget proposal. I do want to take a moment to give special appreciation over the last 3.5 months to all those who have come out and shown support for the board's budget. Our entire professional community, our unions were there advocating. They've been just allies in the work over the last couple of months. Our board members who have been just staunch advocates for making sure we acquire the resources to do the work that we have set our goals around. Our family members. I saw a lot of family members who were part of that town hall come out on Wednesday night. We appreciate your advocacy. I think you understand we've made it very clear that we need to continue to do this work for the children of Stratford. And there's some early signs that our kids are growing and narrowing that learning loss gap or that achievement gap. So we need to continue to keep our foot on that gas pedal because we believe that Stratford Public Schools can be one of the best academic institutions in the region. So again, thank you so much. We have a lot of work to do, and we will keep you updated on the progress of our work with the town on the budget. And that's it for the executive report.
Thank you, Dr. Sunday. Any questions for Dr. Sunday?
Sure.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, our last meeting, we had a brief presentation about the dual language program, and we're told we would receive a report on that and some clarification on the, as well as some clarification on the number of students that program serves. We haven't received that yet. Is that in the works or?
Yeah, so I know we've been working to aggregate that. I believe it was fresh off the print today, so I'm going to ask Dr. Gator, do you have that with you? Okay, perhaps we can distribute this to the board.
What you're receiving right now is the most current information that we have on the Lost Links assessment data, which indicates the performance of Stratford students compared to the performance of other students in Connecticut. This year's Lost Links assessment was administered in January, February, and March. As soon as the results become available, you will receive the report along with a breakdown of the district-administered assessments as well. I believe at the last meeting, Mrs. Masari did share with you the enrollment numbers at that time, and we'll update them along with this report on the assessment as well. We just want to make sure that disaggregating the data by the students who are involved in that program takes a considerable amount of time because we're comparing, we have to pull them out of the Lost Links assessment as well as the district assessments for all of our schools. So it's a timely process, but we're just about finished with our mid-year data, and the Lost Links data should be available at the end of this month.
That's great. Perhaps it might be possible at some point, since there does seem to be so much interest in the dual language program, that we might be able to arrange a visit for board members who are interested to see the program in action.
Definitely.
Great, that'd be awesome. Thank you. Any other questions for Dr. Sunday?
May I also suggest that
Yes,
I
ma'am.
think it is important for us to hear more about the purpose and the responsibility that we have with bilingual programs in our district, to understand the federal mandates,
Yes.
and how this particular program addresses some of not the challenges, but the needs that we have in our district. So I think that a complete report about how this program helps us to meet the requirements that we have to meet, and should we not have this program, the alternatives to what we would need to do.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you. I appreciate that. Any other questions for Dr. Sunday today? Great. Thank you very much. We'll move on to Ms. Mangini and our Chief Operating Officer's report.
Good evening, everyone. I'm happy to have this opportunity to share some information with you. First, our registration continues to be busy with ongoing kindergarten registrations, but we're also very busy with district-wide registrations at all grades, and that's for both new students for this school year as well as pre-registrations for next school year. We also continue to work with our food service consultant, who will actually be back in the district this week visiting some of our elementary schools. The reviews have really been going well and have resulted in some solid conversations with our Sodexo partners for continued improvement in the program and really some positive feedback with what we're doing, so we're quite pleased about that. And I was also recently asked to serve as a member of the State Department of Education's Post-COVID Advisory Committee, and it's to begin discussions relating to post-COVID financial matters. We had our first meeting a few weeks ago and plan to focus on the areas that districts feel federal funding assisted with most over the pandemic. Given the vast amount of federal funding that was received over the last several years, it's really imperative that districts begin planning, as we well know, for operating at pre-COVID funding levels. And the state is looking to actually understand where the loss of that funding will be most impactful, hopefully with the goal of perhaps supporting districts a bit. Our next meeting is set for later this week, and I will absolutely continue to share information with the board through the committee's work. And lastly, I debated whether or not to share this with you, but I thought it might be a little bit on a lighter note this evening, and I shared it with Dr. Osunday earlier today. The Mangini household did some spring cleaning over the weekend, and as a result, I had about 2 big, very large garbage bags of stuffed animals. I brought them into the office today to share with colleagues. I put free to a good home. As it turned out, I wasn't aware initially, because I had meetings all day long, that in the conference room next to my office, they were actually conducting the kindergarten testing for ELL students. Well, apparently, once the students walked out, they were allowed to take one of the stuffed animals, and I was told by numerous people that the kids were absolutely thrilled, and one little guy had a spider t-shirt on and took a spider stuffed animal, and one young lady loved butterflies and found a butterfly stuffed animal. So though I may have made the Children's Day, I can't tell you how pleased my whole family is that we are able to get rid of some things in our house, but make some kids really happy. So it would just put a smile, I think, on a lot of people's faces on the second floor in particular today. So just
I love that story. You're the best. Thank you. That's a great story. Any questions about stuffed animals for Ms. Mangini or financial?
There's more.
Are you done?
I'm done, I'm sorry.
Okay, all right, I'm sorry.
Yes, I was ready to hear more stories.
Just 2 things. Last meeting, you had said you would get us a list of the surpluses over the last 6, 7, 8 years.
I apologize if I didn't send that to you, because I definitely put it together, so
okay.
I will get that out
Okay.
in the morning.
And the other question I have, I had the opportunity to take a look at, I guess what's called the purchase order report. I guess something you submit to the town at the year end. It was like an 80-page document.
Yeah, it's our open purchase orders on June 30th.
Okay. So one of the items in there I saw, and I just glanced through it, and I figure I'll ask now, but there was a $203,000 payment to Santa Fuel for vehicles, gas, buses, BOE vehicles. I guess my question is, wouldn't the fuel be in the Durham contract, or
No.
how does that work? How does that payment work?
Yeah, quite frequently and more often than not, bus contracts require that the school districts purchase the fuel. And the main reason for that, quite frankly, is that we don't pay the tax that the bus company would, so it's a savings to us as municipal government.
So when we look at our transportation costs and our contract with Durham, is that number in a separate area? I don't remember seeing it in our budget book, so I'd assume that the fuel was part of the contract. Is that in a separate line item, or?
It is. It's a little bit of a strange name, but it's called gasoline absorption. And actually, if you recall, you made a transfer into that account at the last meeting because we were paying more than we had originally anticipated per gallon.
Okay. Okay, thank you. That was it.
Any other questions for Ms. Mangini down there? Ms. Cupie, I can't see you, but do you have any questions?
I'm going to call you out. Do you have any questions?
Well, maybe the next meeting. I'm thinking about some stuff, and I want to run it by Dr. Sunday.
All right, sounds good. Okay, great. Thank you very much, Ms. Mangini. And we'll move on to Dr. Gita's teaching and learning report.
Thank you. Good evening, everyone. We're well into the season of assessment. I'm sure you all know that. You know that the Stratford SAT Day took place on March 28th, and makeups are being taken at this time. The Next Generation Science Standards assessments for students in grades 5, 8, and 11 began last week. Testing and makeups will be completed by April 28th. The Smarter Balanced Assessment for students in grades 3 through 8 are coming up, and the window for ELA, or the English Language Arts, is April 24th through May 5th, and math begins on May 8th, and the testing window extends to the 26th of May. I just want to say with regard to the testing, one of the things I think that, we do focus on growth and we focus on student achievement, but one of the things that I find that Stratford should be very proud of is the participation rate of our students. Typically, we always are over 95%. In the last 3 years, we had our percentages for state testing were 96, 98, and 97%. And that really, I think, is attributed to the hard work that's done at the building level. Our assessment coordinator also truly trying to support students and help them to complete their testing. So I think that's a very unusually high rate, and I think we need to recognize that as well. Most of our kids are testing, nearly all of them, and I think that's something to be proud of. Summer school application will be coming out very soon, so please watch for these. And on Friday morning, this past Friday, Stratford hosted 2 State Department of Education personnel on a walk through several of our buildings to view some of the Alliance-funded programs in place. We visited 3 kindergarten classes at Nichols Elementary School to observe purposeful play, number corners, kindergarten aid support, and the use of decodable texts. We then visited Worcester Middle School to observe the math interventionist there working with students, following up with a discussion about the work at hand. Then we proceeded to Second Hill Lane to observe the work that the reading interventionist was doing with the dual language students. And the visits were followed up by a final discussion around data collection and use in supporting students in our district. The third and final monitoring session will take place in June. And lastly, this Thursday, the final master class, if you will, of the Science of Reading will take place. Each participating district, and there are 11 of them in the state of Connecticut, will share how participation in the program has impacted our district. Members who have been very diligent and in attending these sessions were led by Dr. Asundi, Sue Schmidt, our district coordinator for literacy, Dr. Diorio, the principal of Nichols Elementary School, Kelly Shurik, the reading teacher at Nichols, Daira Donis, who is the TESOL teacher there, Danielle Gilmet, who is a special ed teacher, and Vicky Pillow, who is a kindergarten teacher. So this has been an incredible year for that particular program. They each come back and share the information that they learn with the stakeholders that they represent. So we just want to thank them. And there are wonderful things that are going on that we don't always hear about. but really require the effort and interest and engagement of our staff as well, all on behalf of our students. So thank you all.
Thank you, Dr. Gata. Does anybody have any questions for Dr. Gata? Yes, ma'am.
What summer programs are we implementing this year? So in general, but also I did see an announcement that the state is allocating across, the entire state, maybe 30 million, right, to support summer programs. And I was curious if what our allocation of that is and what we're using it for. Are we doing any programs around kind of acceleration? Are we doing anything to help students move through different tiers? Give us an update.
Well, there will be an elementary summer program, very similar to the summer program that was run last year, which is based on predominantly math and literacy, our core subject areas, but it's STEM-based as well. And so in addition to that, we also are going to have an opportunity to have some of our art teachers and music teachers, students will get a chance to engage in that as well. Again, I'm trying to do this off the top of my head. We have requested to have something a little different this year in terms of music opportunity, and again, this is sort of connected to the Alliance grant as well. We were able to purchase some music instruments to engage students who may not be able to rent an instrument or whatever, so we make those available. And so what we're trying this year, we have 2 music teachers who have offered to come in and give lessons and work with students, and particularly at the elementary level, because I know you asked about that, engaging students and interest in music and that. So that will be for elementary. Of course, we also have our extended school year program, which will assist our students who are qualified to attend that particular program. We also have our secondary program, which runs 7 through 12, and in addition to credit recovery, we will be offering the Milestone C program again, which is the aviation program for students who are interested in that's sort of a special interest, in addition to the music program. We have the 21st Century After School program that usually runs during the year that will extend through the summer as well. I don't know, Pam, you, Ms. Mangini, you and I have probably been the most involved in putting these programs together, and I know funding for programs is going to be special this summer, as it has been for the last summer, but I can't speak specifically to Ms. Coopy's reference to the state funds.
I'd be happy to. Actually, we do have still a considerable amount set aside for both summer school programs this summer as well as next summer, and that was in our original plan from the very beginning. So each year, I believe we will probably see the program grow, particularly with regard, I hope, to participation. Don't forget the first year that we offered the expanded opportunities. We were just coming off of COVID, and I think we struggled a little bit, quite frankly, to get teachers who really wanted to work that summer after a very challenging year. And I think families weren't really ready to engage their children to be out of the house so much either. And I think last year we saw an improvement, and I believe with some of the great offerings this summer, I think we're going to see that program grow. So it's exciting.
I think one of the nicest things is that transportation is provided also. That's a big addition.
So of the programs that you listed, maybe because I'm not familiar with the details of them, can you share which ones are designed to help move our students through different tiers? Like, what specifically are we doing in that area, and how for us as board members to understand, well, this program is helping to impact these outcomes that we're hearing about?
Would it be helpful if I send out the brochure so that you could read? Yeah, I will send that out. I'll have Sam Rosenberg and Sue Schmidt are overseeing that, so we'll get that out to you. I believe it's already said.
Any other questions for Dr. Gita? Yes, sir.
One quick one. Again, last month, again, I had asked for the numbers of chronic absenteeism throughout the school. And if we could, I don't know if you have them now or if we could get them.
I believe that's fresh off the press as well.
And then just one other comment, I guess it's to the sound people. I don't know if we can, I'm having a hard time hearing up here. I don't know if there's any way maybe in the future we can get a speaker out front that kind of amplifies. I know typically we're facing each other and it's a little easier to see each other when they're talking, but now it's for me at least, maybe I'm old, but it's just difficult to hear. So I don't know if we can get somehow some amplification up here, so maybe make it a little easier for us. Thank you.
Great. Any other questions for Dr. Gita?
Hmm?
Do you have any other questions?
That was it.
Okay.
That was it.
Excellent. Dr. Gita, thank you so much.
Welcome.
Okay, we'll move on to our consent agenda. I will entertain a motion to approve our meeting minutes from our regular meeting on March 27th, 2023, as
So
well
moved.
as this month's personnel document.
So moved.
So moved by Ms. Cupie.
Second?
Oh, geez. Second by Mrs. Wiltsey. Any discussion?
Madam Chair?
Yes, sir.
In our hiring report, there were a lot of new positions based on new grants. It seemed like a significant number. There were some.
The enrichment clubs?
Yeah, there were enrichment clubs and some other, but I just wondering what grant that is coming out of. They're new positions, they're not reappointments or replacements.
The enrichment clubs are part of ESSER, and that was, again, part of our original plan. And again, last year, we struggled to get those programs off the ground because we simply could not get staff. But we've actually developed a pretty robust program at each of our schools this year, and I know that was shared with the board a couple of months ago. I believe Ms. Wilsey had asked for some of that information, and there is quite a bit going on,
Sounds
so
fun.
it's exciting.
Yeah, there's 36 of those positions in here, but they're all ESSER.
They're all ESSER grants, okay. And so the ESSER grant expires at the end of next year, those will.
September of 2024, and correct, that will be the sunsetting of those programs unless we can find a different funding source.
Okay, and the lead teachers as well, those are grant annual appointments, are those something that will get replaced? Is that ESSER as well, or?
I would need to know specifically which ones you were referring to, because some lead are paid out of the general operating budget and have been for many years, and then there are some that were developed, particularly in the special education area, during the pandemic and are paid out of ESSER.
So there are 3 positions as curriculum writers that says grant annual appointment?
The curriculum writing, I believe, are out of general operating, but I will confirm that and get back to you.
Okay, because it says grant annual appointment, so.
Okay. I'm not sure if that's actually coming out of Alliance, but I will verify which grant and get
It's
back.
possible that's coming out of title.
Pardon?
It's possible that's coming out of the title grant.
Title.
Okay, thank you. That was it.
Great. Any other discussion around our minutes or the personnel document? Seeing no further discussion, we'll have a roll call vote. Ms. Cupie?
Yes.
Mrs. Wiltsey?
Yes.
Ms. Carol Fabian?
Yes.
Ms. Bedell?
Yes.
Mr. Henrik?
Yes.
Chair votes yes, motion passes 6-0. Sorry, guys. All right, we'll move on to items for action and discussion. Item number 1 is a proposed budget transfer. Ms. Mangini, will you tell us a little bit about it before we...
Absolutely. First, I want to apologize that we had an error on what was provided in your packet on the actual budget transfer with that yellow heading, and you did have a replacement form at your seats today, and it was simply just a transposition of the numbers within the columns. But this particular transfer, first I would like to explain where the funding is coming from. As you may recall, as we were reviewing our budget for the development of fiscal year 24, we had explained that we had a significant savings to the retiree insurance based on our renewal, our negotiation for our renewal for next year. What we knew, but didn't analyze as quickly was the fact that our insurance calendar year runs January 1 through December 30th. So we are already beginning to see those savings. We're analyzing with our broker exactly where those savings are, but minimum is $150,000 in this operating budget. I actually think it will be more. But for the time being, with that guarantee of $150,000 at minimum, we are asking that we be allowed to transfer those funds into the instructional computer accounts. And these are all basically IT accounts that are before you on this budget transfer form. And what they are for specifically, the $43,750 is for a camera at the Bunnell High School field, security camera. I will tell you, we did try to work through the town's capital budget because there is $150,000 available there through security and safety measures. But in speaking with Miss Sarah with regard to capital items, she did share that she is trying to put as much of that money away as possible towards the man traps at both Franklin and Wilcox. Yeah, so I do understand that, and since we do have some money in our budget and we do feel this is very important to move forward with, we're making that recommendation. And the other two line items are actually for replacement of desktops, laptops, and mobile devices for administration. It's an area where computers have really been ignored, so rightfully so, we could get the best into the schools. And of course, Mr. Ruggiero and Mr. Rivers can elaborate if you have any additional questions on those areas, since they are the experts in both of those topics.
Sounds good. Thank you, Ms. McGee. So what I'll do is I'll entertain a motion, and then we can have any needed discussion around this. So with that said, I will entertain a motion to approve budget transfer number 1, which is to cover various technology needs of the district. Total budget transfer amount is $144,250. So moved by Mrs. Wiltie.
Second.
Second by Ms. Cubie. Any discussion or questions?
Madam Chair, just for the process, we didn't have our finance committee meeting today. Is it somewhere mandated that all transfers come through finance, or is that just a?
It's not. I mean, they would come through finance with just a recommendation, and so we can pass it through without the recommendation.
So there's no organizational regulations that require us
Not that I
to
found.
pass it through finance? Okay, all right. But yeah, if we could get some kind of detail.
Yeah,
about
you bet.
where the money's going.
Mr. Ruggiero, would you mind?
No.
Thank you.
Hopefully you can all hear me. You know what I mean? So I could speak to the cameras. Bunnell football field never had any, except for looking down at the field. So in talking with the principal, Carlos Castro, and the SRO, we decided we needed to put more there. Not that there's a lot of activity, but stuff happens. We came up with a layout for cameras down there. It comes out to about 13 cameras that we'll be able to, there isn't anything that we won't be able to see once we get done with this project. So we'll be able to view everything down there. From the gate coming in from the back lot, the back road, under the bleachers, all the way up to the school, driveway, all around the field house, out to the baseball field, again, under the bleachers, all around, covering the entire bleachers.
Under the bleachers?
Yep.
So you're going to put a sign there so the kids know you're being, no more making out under the
No more
bleachers?
making out, well,
You're stealing their
sometimes it
spot.
works, sometimes it doesn't.
So which line item, we have 3 line items
That's
here?
the 43,000.
43 is you? Okay.
Yeah. So those cameras there are really high tech that we can actually see super clear all the way out to the ball field.
Okay, great, thank you.
Thank you very much. And Mr. Rivers, if you wouldn't mind detailing the other 2 lines.
Not a problem. The first line, the 23,000, that is to finish up some smartboard installs at Second Hill Lane. We had 5 rooms that shifted into full instructional classrooms, so we wanted to make sure that we have all instructional rooms with newer smart boards. The second line, like Ms. Mangini said, we always focus on upgrading and replacing equipment in all of our schools. Our BOE admin building has not seen an upgrade in approximately 9 to 10 years, just because we wanted to focus on the schools, obviously. So this will take care of the desktop computers and laptops for the administration center.
Great, thank you. Any questions regarding that information? Ms. Kewpie, did you have something?
Well, not specific to these items, but I did want us to think about, at Dr. Sunday's town hall last week, it was brought up by teachers when some family members mentioned, the reaction time to incidents happening. And a teacher mentioned there are not enough walkie-talkies for everyone to have, right? So I would love for us to assess our estimated surplus, get a number. I think maybe you've put in an order for some, but to get us to a place where there sort of is one-to-one, like we don't want to be scrambling. You never know when something major is going to come up, and just because somebody doesn't need one doesn't mean we shouldn't have something like that in place from a safety and security standpoint.
You bet. Thank you very much. Any other questions about this budget transfer?
Just one comment. I guess it's more my belief, more of a comment, but it's my belief that we as a district and as a board of ed, we should never waste a nickel of the town's money, but it's also my belief that we should never send a surplus back to the town. So I'm glad to see we've taken some creative steps to address some issues that have been long-standing, and the money that's allocated to us from the town will be spent wisely. So thank you.
Great, thank you for that. Any further discussion? Super. Seeing none, we'll have a roll call vote. Mr. Henrik?
Yes.
Ms. Bedell?
Yes.
Ms. Carol Fabian?
Yes.
Mrs. Welty?
Yes.
Ms. Kewpie?
Yes.
Chair votes yes. Motion passes 6-0. Thank you all. We will move on to the proposed school year calendar for the 23-24 school year. It is in our packets. I will entertain a motion to approve the proposed school year calendar for 23-24.
So moved.
So moved by Mr. Henrik.
Second.
Second by Ms. Wiltsey. We can have some discussion. Now, Dr. Sunday, do you have anything to add?
Sure. We feel very good about this calendar. We've brought this before the board over the last couple of months. It's a very cogent calendar. We have all of our dates added to the calendar. There is one last piece. If you recall, I believe last winter, Ms. Kewpie talked about the format. So the contents of the calendar is exactly where we need it to be. Over the course of the next couple of months, we'll continue to vet out formats of calendars and then transfer the contents just so the calendar is better user-friendly, if I believe. Ms. Kewpie, I believe that was the point you were trying to make with that suggestion, correct?
Mm-hmm.
So the contents of the calendar is exactly the work we've been working on. There are some dates that are reflected with conferences and PLCs. We'll also institute a practice a few days before some of these breaks in the week. We will send that communication to remind our families, and then we'll continue to work on the format for the calendar and the website.
Can you tell us a little bit about your new proposal for PLC days?
Mm-hmm.
Right. So PLCs has been one of the primary improvement instruments that we've embedded into our systems. And I give credit to our schools for really leveraging it and making sure that the PLC agendas are directly focused to their school improvement plans. We listened to our stakeholders this year, and I know myself and Mr. Henrik have had conversations about how the disruption happens typically after the new year. We'll come back for 2 days, and then we're in a PLC, it's a half day. So one of the things that we did, I convened my team to examine the calendar to make sure that we selected weeks to be able to afford this opportunity to our staff that do not have consecutive disruptions. The other piece now is what we're going to look to do is rather than have an early release, we're ultimately going to begin with a delayed start, similar approach to what we use for our inclement weather, where our staff will come in fresh, ready to engage in the work, and then we'll do a bus run to pick up our kids and have the rest of the day. This has been a strategy that has worked very effectively as we examine some things in some highly effective, high-functioning, high-achieving districts, and we feel that we have the ability to implement that here as well.
Might I just suggest
Of course.
that a delayed start might be a larger challenge for some families than an early dismissal. I know, speaking personally and selfishly, it would definitely be more of a hassle for myself than an early dismissal. I do feel that with enough advance notice, especially if our calendar is broadcast out to our families at this point in the year for next year, that folks do have enough time, hopefully, to arrange for after-school care. Before school care is a little trickier. That's just my opinion. I'm just putting it out there. Mrs. Wiltsey.
That's fair.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Two things. The PLC dates on the calendar, if we can have them circled in text. I see that there's a small error, but I don't think those dates are going to be widely recognized by families as the holidays are.
Okay.
So if we could do something to change that format.
Of course.
The second thing is, with the delayed start, have we had any communication or conversation with stakeholders as far as community collaborators with the child care? So we've got a few, nonprofits that do the before and the after school in town, and this will dramatically change the structure of their programs.
Right. We've had the internal conversation, including looking at transportation and how it impacts students in choice programs. We have not had the direct conversation, but I do know that Ms. Bengini and myself have been having those conversations. We plan to have that conversation well in advance of next year. It's good feedback.
Ms. Carol Fabian.
Another question, concern regarding, excuse me. Thank you for sharing. With the delayed opening versus the early dismissal, some families rely on those older children who will be released earlier than the elementary students to care for their younger children. But with the delayed opening, those students, the high school students, middle school students will leave, and those elementary students will still be at home until 10:30.
Yeah.
And again, it kind of goes to the child care coverage for some families.
Yes, I'm sorry, Ms. Bedell.
I also am going to jump on the bus of the PLC days. I noticed that they're all scheduled on the same day of the week. And while that's petty, it often means that a parent can't take a shift on that day, or, nurses, firefighters, first responders, all scheduled on, similar days, months out sometimes. Having those days rotate between a Tuesday and a Thursday, or, whatever it might be, may allow a little more flexibility.
That's absolute excellent feedback, and we'll certainly take that into consideration. I don't want to make any more dramatic shifts to it, but if the feedback has merit, we'll certainly make that consideration and get that out. But the one thing that we realized quickly through this exercise is that there was going to be no placement that adequately met the needs of everybody. Okay, we had this conversation with our union leaders, had this conversation with our administrators. I did have offline conversations with other leaders across the community and some board members. There is no one design to the calendar, and that's the thing, that's the unique nature of calendars. But we did feel that whatever we adopted, right, because as I talked to our teachers said to me, my superintendent advisory, I said, what do you think would be best? I had conversations with administrators, I brought it up with SEA leaders, what do you think would be best? And all these scenarios came up, and they said to me, you know what, Dr. Sunday, because it cannot satisfy everybody, you may just have to make a decision and get that out way in advance so people can prepare and plan. So our response to the nuance and complexity of how these schedules work and how it satisfies teachers' needs, family needs, and all those different variables was, if we get this out well in advance, then we put this document in the hands of families so they can plan ahead. but we would also send those routine and regular communications, a few days in advance, so they have that reminder to make the necessary adjustments. But we'll take the feedback that we're hearing today, and I'll convene my team. And if it warrants a change, then we'll make those changes to the PLC days.
Any other discussion? Oh, I'm sorry. Hi,
That's okay. So Dr. Sennett, did you say this sort of schedule is a best practice? Are you familiar with this being utilized in other districts to be effective?
Absolutely.
And I heard you say you had input from the unions, the did you say teachers as well? Have you had teacher feedback on this?
Correct.
Okay.
The winter superintendent advisory, which we have quarterly, this was one of the discussion items, and they gave me feedback with that.
Okay.
And I see our union leaders there. We had this as part of our discussion item as well. And they brought up a lot of the same variables that are being shared by the board.
So from a best practice standpoint, maybe just highlight a couple of things that us as advocates, right, because we have to communicate and interface with the community, and if we're explaining this, we want to make sure that we are correct in our communication.
Very good.
And on the subject of PLC days, perhaps at some point in the future, we might have a presentation regarding what happens during PLC days, why they're important, and how they benefit our kids and their learning.
We can make that happen.
Awesome. Any other questions? Okay, seeing none, we will have a roll call vote. And we're going to start down with Ms. Cupie.
Yes.
Mrs. Wiltsey.
Sorry, I thought we were going to come back for a vote
Oh,
after
do you
some
have,
changes.
wait, do you have another?
No, I'll vote yes.
Ms. Carol Fabian.
Yes.
Ms. Bedell, sorry.
No.
Mr. Henry.
Yes.
And the chair votes yes. Motion passes 5-1. I would just ask that you do look into the concerns that we stated and get back to us on that. But the holidays, the first day, the last day, all of that, folks can count on now. I think we can agree on, right? Wonderful. We will move on. We have two pieces of curriculum tonight, and so I will start with item for action number 3. I will entertain a motion to approve the Algebra 1 curriculum.
So moved.
So moved by Ms. Cupie.
Second.
Second by Ms. Carol Fabian. Does somebody from the curriculum committee have an update for us?
Sure. So at our last curriculum meeting, the Algebra 1 curriculum was presented. It is being updated. It was updated using the illustrative math program, as well as aligning it with and incorporating the portrait of a graduate competencies. It was one step of the process they've completed, and it's just one way that they're going to continue to build on incorporating the portrait of the graduate competencies and the illustrative math along all of our high school math curriculums.
Exciting. Great. Thank you. Any questions about this curriculum? Ms. Cupie down there, I can't see you. Any questions?
No.
Okay. Excellent. We'll have a roll call vote. Mr. Henrik?
Yes.
Ms. Bedell?
Yes.
Ms. Carol Fabian?
Yes.
Mrs. Wiltsey?
Yes.
Ms. Cupie?
Yes.
Chair votes yes. Motion passes 6-0. Move on to number 4. I will entertain a motion to approve CTE Intro to Business course with approval to write.
So moved.
So moved by Ms. Carol Fabian.
Second.
Second by Mrs. Wiltsey. Can you tell us what this one's about?
Sure. So also at the last curriculum meeting, it was presented the Intro to Business course. They are looking to begin writing this curriculum. It is a new course that will be added to the high schools. One of the things that they noticed in our business education department was that we offer many wonderful courses, business law, sports and entertainment marketing, macroeconomics, things like that, but there was not like an intro course that kind of gave students a wide range of the different areas that they could study in the business area. So this curriculum is being written as a course that would be like a prerequisite before you move on to the following courses, so that you can build a foundation around all the areas of business.
Great, thank you. Any questions? Seeing none, roll call vote. Ms. Cupey?
Yes.
Mrs. Wiltsey?
Yes.
Ms. Carol Fabian?
Yes.
Ms. Bedell?
Yes.
Mr. Henrik?
Yes.
Chair votes yes, motion passes 6-0. We'll move on to a discussion about the athletic handbook for Bunnell High School and Stratford High School. I know that Mr. Kennedy had been working on that in his athletic review committee, but unfortunately he's not here tonight. Do we know, is there anybody who can speak to that, Mrs. Wiltsey?
Not to the details of the handbook per se, or the status of where we are with it.
Right.
At the last athletic review committee meeting Thursday, it was Mr. Kennedy's understanding that it didn't have to go through policy, and it would just be something that the board could review and approve as revised.
So I'm trying to pull up my email that I have from Cabe, and I can read you. I have so many emails from Teresa. She's like my best friend. Hold on one second. Okay, there we go. So this came from Cabe. It says, the board should not be approving an athletic handbook. The superintendent can report to the board about it being near finalization and can present the board with a final draft requesting any feedback that the superintendent can then bring back to the athletic directors. So in our discussion tonight, I know it's a timely issue. I know they need to have it, sort of on the books and ready to go. So I don't know where, do you guys?
I think they can just move forward with it.
What's that?
They can just move forward.
Yes,
with
presumably,
it.
basically,
Exactly.
yes, that is essentially, but if
But
you
we
guys
didn't
have
have
any
any
feedback or anything
changes.
you'd like
We
to see?
didn't have any specific changes. We were fine with the proposed language that they had in there. However, just from a overall, review of the handbook, I felt there needed to be more explicit call-outs of accountability, like who does what, when it comes to the discipline piece in there.
I can speak a little to that because it was a hot topic Thursday night. And while there's no blanket policy regarding discipline or absenteeism from practices and things like that, they did take the suggestion, and we're going to add to coaches' discretion to a lot of the things because of registration of certain sports. If they have one set out, they're forfeiting. So it is ultimately to the coach's discretion.
So the coach, not the athletic director. Like I reviewed, like some districts will have a handbook, some will have an actual policy. If they have one, they don't have the other. And when reviewing it, a lot of the responsibility of discipline it would say the athletic director. So just something to think about in terms of who is responsible for what.
Yeah, they were pretty clear in saying that the words coach's discretion would be added.
Okay.
Any other feedback or discussion about the athletic handbook?
So, just,
Yes, sir.
and we had the presentation a while back though, but I think the language mirrored what the I can't remember the main organizational body is for athletics. So it was pulled from their guidelines, I believe.
Yeah, I believe it was.
That's correct.
Missing pieces were,
But there are other districts that are part of that group, and they have better language in their policy. So I just want us to step ours up.
As this isn't a policy, it's a handbook, we can leave the responsibility for it with the athletic directors who, have that expertise regarding the subject matter. But with any further feedback, please feel free to send it along to the ADs. CC Mr. Kennedy on that as well, and thank you for that. Any other discussion about this? Great. Moving on to tabled items, is there anything that the board would like to remove from the table? Great. Seeing none, we'll move on to committee assignments and reports. The renaming committee will be meeting next week, I believe. It's exciting. Curriculum. Ms. Carol Fabian, we just heard from you. Anything else?
Sure. So we met on April 18th. We were presented with the Algebra 1 curriculum, which we just approved this evening. We were presented with the writing of the Intro to Business curriculum, which we just approved. And lastly, we had a presentation from the Portrait of a Graduate led by Joanna Nigerian Garb, and our high school principals, Dr. Katie Graff and Jack Delapiano, as well as some other members of their team. They shared with us the visit that the Bar Association had conducted between both Stratford High and Bunnell High School. And I would ask again if we could get that shared with the entire board, that presentation, just because one of the slides I especially want all of us to see is the quotes, the praises that we received from these visitors were very touching and heartwarming, and it showed just all of the incredible work that, especially at our high schools that they were visiting, has put in to help our students grow into our Portrait of a Graduate, and the work that they're doing to build our mastery-based credits, as well as grow our students and work, and I loved that they discussed really how we're building it kind of backwards, right? We're starting from where we want them to be, so it's begun at the high school level and where our seniors should be when they graduate, and it's progressively working back to how that pertains to even our kindergartners and how that they need to build to this graduate level that we're looking for. So it was an excellent presentation, it was excellent feedback, and you'd enjoy the whole presentation.
I would. Thank you, Ms. Carol Fabian. Anything to add, Ms. Cupie?
No.
Thank you. Okay, our Finance Committee did not meet this evening, but I'm sure we will be meeting several times during the month of May. School plan planning, Ms. Cupie, Mr. Hendrick?
Good, sure. So we did meet on April 5th. We had Brian Snyder come to our meeting because he had done our buildings assessment. I forget when that was, if it was 2020. But we wanted to get his thoughts on Bunnell and Flood, because in his report, those two schools are the most in need of either renovation or brand new. The conversation, included discussions around possibly moving to one middle school. What would that look like, right? What would it look like if we built brand new middle schools? So there are different steps that you'd have to take when looking at renovating one of these buildings. Right now, based on our financial status and in terms of our students who receive free and reduced meals, like those sort of data points, I think the reimbursement from the state, if we wanted to do like a renovation to new, would be over 60%. I think, was it like 63%, Mike, that the state would cover versus what the town would have to cover? And there has been some hesitation around, well, the town just built Stratford High, the appetite for something like that. But looking at the history of how Stratford High, from when the conversation started to where it is now, I think, what was it, 1990 something, right?
Well,
like,
yeah,
that's a long
2003
time.
we started, yeah.
Yeah, that's a long time. So we should start having those discussions now and researching the steps involved. He did recommend that we should do a study of the facilities to figure out if, let's say it was Stratford High to become the new middle school, right? Like, we would have to study that to see if that's feasible and how other buildings would be impacted by all of that. So that's really where we are. And then one other update, we talked about the capital improvement plan, where we had a line item in there for the redistricting of our school lines, like what streets direct to what school.
Right, a study.
The study. Mm-hmm. I've heard Mike mention multiple times that he doesn't think it being in our capital improvement plan will get approved. From my perspective, I think that is a really important piece of work that we need to get done and we need to prioritize. And so I don't want to hedge on something like that possibly getting approved. Like, we need to do it So I would ask that we look at our budget for any potential surplus and move that to be covered through that those dollars instead of waiting on a potential rejection in the capital improvement plan. So that's my update. Mike, feel free to give yours.
Yeah, and so it was just my opinion with the placement of that study, but I will, talk to the mayor, talk to the council and see if we can maybe get that through. I mean, I know we're looking at numbers, but pushing that because obviously we're in budget season, we're looking at cuts, we're looking at different things, if we can get that in there. But it's a necessity, and that has to do, I think, with some of the long-term things. And then the other thing, which I just caution too, when talking about, and kind of changed my perspective a little bit, but talking long-term, Stratford High was 15 years from initial conversation. I'm sure there were conversations before me, but as far as I was involved, 15 years to, completion. Which kind of changed my perspective a little bit, but something to keep in mind right now that the town carries about an $11 million debt service between the principal and the interest, and I don't know if that's all for Stratford High. I'm sure there's some other projects that have been bonded through the schools, but that's the payment that the town makes on an annual basis, $11 million to cover the debt services of bonded projects through the Board of Ed. So it just, we need to be cautious or considerate of where they're at, but we also need to, think long-term and move ahead and come up with some ideas on where we want to go and then start pushing in the direction. But it is going to take a long time from conversation to completion. So it's definitely, to Ms. Coopy's point and the committee's point, it's definitely a conversation and a thought process to run through. So.
Great, thank you both. Liaison did not meet because the members of Liaison on the town side have been hard at work in the Ordinance Committee. Policy Review did not meet, although I know you guys have discussed several things, so thank you. Do you have anything to add?
Well, we did not meet, but Kristen and I, and we've heard from you all, and the community members as well. We do need to review our cell phone policy, so that is on our sort of like research list that we're diving through our policy,
Great.
Looking at some other district policy, and hoping to make some nice updates or effective updates to ours.
Great, that's great news.
And I think I would invite that conversation throughout the last week, having conversations with our families and individual meetings with certain parents. They've actually put some brilliant ideas. I do think we need to perhaps refresh the cell phone piece.
Mm-hmm.
There's also some administrative regs that I think I may consider, particularly at the elementary and middle school level. But we always, in a time where there's a hyper focus on school safety and all those different things, families naturally would like to have access to their children, so we have to be mindful of those things. But this is definitely a conversation that needs to happen.
Great. Thank you guys so much. And Athletic Review did meet on April 20th. Mr. Kennedy is not here to report out, but Mrs. Wiltsey, do you have anything to add?
Yeah, it was a great meeting, good attendance, and we reviewed winter sports, some of their records. We were told about Hall of Fame inductees that will happen this spring, as well as spring schedules, and a lot of conversation on the handbook. That's it.
Excellent, thank you very much. We'll move on to other committees. Do you have anything to report out from CABE, Ms. Cupie?
I do, two things. So on May 2nd at 12 p.m., CABE will be having a meeting/webinar for anyone who is interested in being a Board of Education candidate. If you're curious about the role and want to know more, you should attend that session. As you know, come November, December, right, 3 of us are going to be off the board, so if it's something of interest for you, I would highly recommend you attend that. And secondly, there are 8 of our scholars in Stratford who have won the 2023 CABE Student Leadership Award. So I won't say who they are because Dr. Sunday will announce them at our May meeting, but congratulations to all of them. Yes.
That's exciting. Excellent news. Thank you so much. I attended CES's monthly meeting on April 6th, and I'm also on their finance committee, which is a special treat. And they are doing great. Their programs are out there doing amazing things. Their enrollment is up, which is amazing as well. So stay tuned. And one day I'd love a presentation. We're going to fill you up with so many presentations. But I'd love a presentation on how our district works alongside CES and how we take advantage of some of their programs. I think would be very interesting to hear. Town building needs. Every month I ask you, is that fair?
What's that? I'm sorry.
Is town building needs?
Oh.
No update.
Okay. one day. Anything else, guys? Before we adjourn?
Before we
Yes,
adjourn?
sir.
Just in our enrollment numbers, just for some clarification, in SOTO, the numbers for the classrooms, if you add up, there's about 10 classrooms there. The numbers total 127, but then we have a total of 213. And I'm just wondering how we, and if you don't know the answer now, that's fine, but just if we can, the math doesn't seem to add up, maybe I'm just not understanding. So if you add these numbers up, they come up to 127, and then down here you have 213 as a total.
Yeah, I believe the total is 213, but the other two columns break out special ed and students of color. But I do understand what you're saying, so we will look into that and get back to you with an answer.
Because I'm assuming the numbers that go across are classroom sizes?
Yes, they are.
So, but when you add up those classroom sizes, it's 127, so it's just that the numbers correlate, and I think all the other numbers on the other ones did, so.
Okay, we will get back to you on that.
Thank you. That was it.
Thank you for your eagle eye, Mr. Henrik. Does anybody else have anything else this evening to add? Spectacular. I will entertain a motion to adjourn at 9:03. So moved. So moved by Mrs. Wiltsey. Second. Second by Ms. Graf-Fabian. All in favor? Aye. Great. Thank you very much for coming out tonight, everybody.